I've been away from here for a couple of weeks, having a digital detox and observing a vow of silence. Now, you should try this. Switch off all your devices for a time. Be quiet for a while because it's truly liberating. Now, when I turned my devices back on, I discovered that a man whose channel I am subscribed to has released a breakthrough study into the root cause of aging and mobility decline. Now, being an avid lifelong practitioner of movement and activity myself, this immediately got my attention, and it's an amazing insight. Tony Ruggia is a 61-year-old analytical thinker and longevity expert who has been conducting his own experimentation and research into movement decline. He's been doing this for more than 40 years, people. Unlike all the others, he's not a relative newcomer to this field. In my opinion, he's the world's leading longevity expert, and you can see this when you watch the guy move. Now, I recommend that you read his study and watch him in action because he is truly amazing. His approach and his training methods are different to mine, but his content you will find very valuable and useful no matter what age you are. Don't be put off by the fact that this dude is 61 years old. If you are younger, the earlier that you address movement practices, the better results that you're going to have in preserving your movement capacity for longer in life. Like myself, Tony turned his attention away from mass gain, and as he correctly states, this training approach will actually accelerate movement decline, and it will also cause low testosterone as well. In this video, I'm going to react to Tony's study and provide a theory from my own experience that might help to further this avenue of research. Humanity moves forward when we ask questions. This is what I'm going to do here. It stays still when we just agree with everything we see. Now, the gist of Tony's study is that he puts forward his own theory that it's not cellular degeneration that is the root cause of aging, but in fact, it's something that begins to happen much earlier on with a decline in motor units. His motor unit theory of aging, he calls this. It's a masterpiece, and it has to be the most groundbreaking study that anyone has put forward thus far this century, by far. In Ruggia 2025, I could be the first person in the world to quote this study. He talks about movement being the food of motor unit preservation, and I will quote him here. Glasses are up here. Now, Ruggia states that not all movement provides the same nourishment. Repetitive, low-intensity motion fails to challenge the nervous system. Motor units are part of the human nervous system, and they provide the neuromuscular mechanism needed for the body to perform any movement. He goes on to say that this type of movement approach may even reinforce neural laziness. This means that it contributes towards the loss of and not the preservation of motor units. He says that to stimulate growth and preservation of these neuromuscular pathways, the movements must be chaotic, that is, novel, fast, reflective, unpredictable. These variables force the brain and the spinal cord to remain fully engaged, constantly recalibrating motor output, modulating firing rates, which is the speed at which muscles respond to the instructions of the brain in order to initiate any movement. And this preserves summation patterns. This cannot be disputed. You know, he's completely on the money here. We only need to look outside and see that movement decline and the slowing down of movement capacity is common to all aging populations. More fact than theory, in my opinion. He also says that traditional exercise recommendations fall short because this emphasises consistency and neglects variation. How many times have you heard people on here talking about consistency? when they, it's inexperience showing here. Rhythm over reactivity. The nervous system adapts to patterns quickly. As Ruggia correctly states, to truly preserve motor units, you must train in ways that constantly challenge the nervous system's adaptability. Now, this concept is known as neuroplasticity. The adaptability that Ruggia refers to here is what is known as motor programming. When the body is adapted to any new movement or new movement pattern, the neuromuscular system has established a new motor program. This means that the movement or pattern has become hardwired into the subconscious mind, and it now becomes an autonomous reaction that can now be performed without really having to think about it. Example, reaching for a glass of water. As small children, learning to balance and to walk, are motor programs. Now, I came across the concept of neuroplasticity and motor programming around 5 to 6 years ago when I studied to become a corrective exercise specialist. In corrective exercise, we use repetitive movement adaptations to correct muscular imbalances, and it can even be used for correcting postural faults. Effectively, this involves overwriting a defective established motor program and replacing it with a new, more efficient version. Now, after being introduced to the concept of neuroplasticity, being a thinker like Tony, I began to play around with this concept, and I've spent the last 5 years doing what I call motor program training. Now, this has been more of a side hustle to my regular training rather than the main body of my training, kind of thing that I've messed around with in my spare time. After reading Tony's study, this has changed my way of thinking, and I'm now considering this motor program training being the core of my training and focusing all my training around this concept rather than it being something that's pushed to the sidelines and done in spare time for fun kind of thing. Motor program training is a very simple concept. You're basically learning new movements and forming a new motor program. When you get that move established, you then speed up the intensity until you can perform the move at high intensity or high speed. Then when you've done this, you then move on to a new movement. Why? Because for neuroplasticity to occur, the movement must be unfamiliar and challenging. Ruggia correctly states that this is the nervous system adapting and therefore being stimulated. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Once the motor program is established and you can just fire it out on autopilot, neuroplasticity stops happening basically. Examples of motor program training, that I've used myself, punch combinations, multi-directional combinations, kicks and punches, juggling, practicing rope flow. Couple of examples there. My current game that I have going on is that I'm working on juggling whilst balancing on a Swiss ball. A video will arrive when I've mastered this. Now, Tony's channel also has provided me with a ton of new moves to try. There's a ton of ideas on training motor programming on his channel. Most important thing, the results. Does this work? Well, I can confirm and validate that Tony's theory is no theory at all. It's a fact. I've had promising results with this. My findings here, even in older age, it's possible for us to establish new motor programs effectively. They say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, you can, as this groundbreaking study demonstrates. Now, the longer I've practiced motor program training, I've become more efficient at mastering and executing new moves. It takes me less time and practice to establish a new motor program than it did when I first started. This has improved my overall movement capacity in many ways, and in this respect, this is the best result, and it's been extremely effective. Now, I used to be the same as everybody else. I trained the same things all the time. even though I considered myself to be a variety man, you know, weights, running, cycling, other things, you know, and I'd noticed the beginnings of decline in range of motion and fluidity, you know, which you tend to notice at around 40 years old. And this motor programming training has reversed this decline, and I now have a very similar movement capacity that I had in youth. You know, have I reversed my aging, as all these people claim? No, I'm 52 and I'm still 52. It's just that I'm a better version of 52 than I could have been without considering this. Now, so is this the future of movement longevity? Yes, you know, I believe it is. Can this be used to help older people preserve their motor units and to preserve their movements? Yes, it can. Could this theory and mechanism even be used to help elderly people with existing movement decline recover better movement patterns through motor program training? This is entirely possible. So Ruggia's study opens up a whole new area of investigation. There's dinner. Deal with that in a minute. It's roast fish. Now, Ruggia's study opens up a whole new area of investigation, not only into aging, but also improving life quality for many people. This has to be considered. It's got to be talked about and taken further. This could also have groundbreaking implications for the fields of physiotherapy and recovering from injuries that cause disability. I can confirm that this works in that respect, having to learn how to use my hand again after injury. Now, please read Tony's study, because in this brief discourse, I've not done him justice. This study calls bullshit on the entire longevity industry. Because this cannot be packaged into a supplement or product, longevity is an industry, not a science. It's there to make money, nothing more. They manufacture studies to convince people to buy various things, you know, some of the prices of these things as well, that will do absolutely nothing to extend your life. Why? Because aging happens further down the line at an earlier point in time with degeneration of the nervous system. As Tony points out, current science and technology knowledge, there is nothing you can do about reversing lost motor units. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing to sell you here. Now, the entire industry, the longevity industry, is nothing more than an elaborate and convincing scam fueled by pseudoscience and scammers with PhDs. These charlatans have betrayed science to satisfy their own greed. This is the motivation for why they are here. It's greed. Tony's study is real science aimed at helping humanity and providing value. Some might doubt Tony's study because he doesn't have a PhD and he's not a scientist, but he is more of a scientist than many who are professing to have that title in the modern world. Now, I highly recommend that you go and check out his YouTube channel. There's a link to one of his videos and a link to his study in the description below. Or you could just type 60 is the new 30 into the search bar on here and he will appear. 60 is the new 30. Bye for now. Subscribe and follow for more.